Okay, we are back. I need to default some of these elements. Fix a lot of this. Why is it like super small now though? Oh, the other thing too is enmity list can go here. Status effects can go down here. Focus target bar can go there. Hey Gershon, hey Jedi Master, what's going on? I think I fixed my overclock. This is the ultimate test because now we're testing the PC while live streaming. So the only thing I didn't do so far is do an actual live stream while playing an MMO, running it all on one PC with the overclock with 8000 and see if it crashes. So this will be the final test. So last time the thing that I did was I cleared, well, I didn't clear CMOS. I loaded optimized defaults. I started over. I applied the XMP profile. And I think I manually set VSOC to 1.2 volts instead of leaving it on auto last time. And I think maybe that helps. I don't know. I don't know if the Gigabyte motherboard automatically changes the VSOC voltage if it's on auto. I don't think it does. But we'll see if this is better. The other thing that I discovered was that Final Fantasy, this game in particular, doesn't like when you have variable refresh rate enabled with this game, because the OLED monitor is 240 hertz, and that's reporting to the game as some undefined value when you have VRR or FreeSync or G-Sync turned on, and that was causing a problem with OBS because OBS was trying to hook into the game and the game didn't know what the frame rate was to report, and I tried using limit capture frame rate. So there was a bunch of things that I wasn't sure if the overclock was to blame or if the VRR was to blame. So we still have the overclock, but I have disabled FreeSync. So there's no more FreeSync running right now. We're going to test and see if that fixes all the weird issues that I was seeing with micro stuttering and OBS making the picture quality look terrible. But anyway, that should address that. I think, okay, so it's the same setup as before, essentially. Let me see. But man, this OLED monitor is so good. Like, I don't know if I can go to anything else. I don't know if I can go to anything else, man. This OLED monitor is so good. The weird thing is I have this monitor in front of me, and then I have these two old TN. They're not IPS, they're just regular TN on the left and the right. And they look terrible. Well, I mean, they don't look terrible, but compared to the OLED, like the viewing angle by itself, just like there's no color shift on the OLED, but if I look at the side monitor, you know, like I look up, I look from underneath it, I look to the side of it, and I can see the color shift. So it's crazy. The OLED model is in the description of the video, I believe. Yeah, it's in the description of the video. It's in the title of this live stream. It's actually in the title of the live stream. Yeah. Yeah. Am I satisfied with the 9700X performance-wise? Horror Unboxed dropped another negative. Horror Unboxed, I don't know what they're doing, because I kind of think that they set their expectations too high for what this is. The other thing, too, is it's been a long time since we've gotten a CPU that didn't come factory overclocked out of the box. See, I think a lot of reviewers that have these negative sentiments, they're too used to CPUs being factory overclocked, because essentially Zen 4 was factory overclocked. Zen 3, for the most part, was mostly factory overclocked. And all the Intel CPUs, as far back as Comet Lake, maybe, yeah, I would say Comet Lake, have all been factory overclocked. There's very, very little gain to be had from trying to overclock a Raptor Lake, an Alder Lake, a Zen 4 CPU, a Zen 4 X3D CPU. So it's been a long time since we've seen CPUs that are well behaved at stock behavior, without trying to run to 95 Celsius, without trying to heat up your room with 250 to 300 watts. You know, like, it's actually refreshing to get a CPU stock that doesn't behave like that. So, and I feel like they're kind of missing the point, because unless, the thing is, here's the thing. If you want the 9700X to perform even better, with literally one change in the BIOS, literally just turning on PBO makes the 9700X behave just like the 7700X. It will immediately try to rush to 95 Celsius. It'll boost as aggressively as possible, and you'll see higher performance numbers than stock. So it's, yeah, it's, I don't know. I watched a little bit of their first video. I didn't watch whatever video that they released today, but I just kind of think that a lot of reviewers with that sentiment are missing the bigger picture. I think they either are tunnel visioned in on how it directly stacks up against the previous generation, and they're not really looking at how does a CPU compare to a 5-year-old CPU or a 3-year-old CPU or even a 7-year-old CPU, because ultimately not everybody upgrades every generation. Do I think somebody with a Zen 4 CPU or an Intel 12th gen or 13th gen should upgrade to a Zen 5? No, not really. I think they're good for another generation. But do I think somebody from AM4 or from an older Intel socket like LGA 1200, should they consider upgrading to the 9700X? Yes, I think that is the target buyer for this product, and I really think that there's too much emphasis on comparing this CPU to last generation, but not everybody upgrades every generation. So it's like, if you're looking at last generation and you're looking at this generation, it's like, who's the target buyer? Is it someone who upgrades every year, or is it someone who is thinking of upgrading their old PC, but they're trying to see, like, okay, is it worth getting the latest and greatest, or should I save some money and get the previous generation? You know, I like to use the buying a car analogy. Like, if you're shopping for a new car, are you the kind of person that will buy the current model year, or do you want to look at the last model year, like last year's model, which you can still purchase new, but it's the last year's model, so it's like discounted and it's an older body style, you know, so it's not going to look as up to date as the current generation or the new generation. So it's like, that's kind of how I think about it when it comes to these sort of comparisons. But it has much more headroom than any of them. Yes, it has much more headroom than any of them. Exactly. But see, the thing is with the older CPUs, or with last generation CPUs, there was no headroom. Like, literally, they came out of the box already overclocked to the max. Like, there was nothing you could do. The fact that people are trying to use Curve Optimizer on a 7700X to fine-tune the voltage, frequency curve, so they can get slightly better boost durations at the same power, at the same temperature, like, that is trying to absolutely eke out whatever is left. That's literally just scraping the bottom of the barrel. That's literally what that is. That is not how traditional overclocking has historically been. It used to be, you would buy a CPU, you'd set it up, you'd see how it runs stock, and then if you wanted to explore getting more performance out of it, you would then start playing around in the BIOS, raising voltage, raising frequency multipliers, maybe overclocking RAM, like that kind of thing. That's how it was. In recent years, that's not how it is. You pretty much buy the thing, all the performance is literally right there, out of the box, there's nothing left, and trying to undervolt and do these things. That is an interesting phenomenon that has popped up in the last few generations, all because the manufacturers are already providing basically 100%, if not 99% of the performance right out of the box. So yeah, honestly, I'm someone who used to overclock CPUs all the time, but ever since, like, I would say ever since like Zen 3 or maybe even Zen 2, I haven't bothered to overclock CPUs. Like, to use in my daily 24/7 operation rig that I build, I don't even bother overclocking those CPUs, because what's the point of overclocking them? They're already overclocked as far as I'm concerned. But with the 9700X, it's not factory overclocked. So it's like, I can actually overclock the CPU and see what it can do. And there's going to be differences between this CPU and another CPU because of the silicon lottery. So it's kind of a return to the way things were back in the day. That's the way I see this launch. And I'm pretty sure that Intel's upcoming CPU, that whenever it launches at the end of this year or whenever it shows up, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be a return to efficiency and a return to not instantly trying to run 100 degrees. So, and there's no more hyper-threading. So you'll get better, like, I guess single thread will be up, but multi-thread will be down. So it'll be interesting to see how Intel's new CPUs perform as well. But I think both Zen 5 and Intel's upcoming CPUs are not going to behave the way Raptor Lake and Zen 4 CPUs behave. Because I kind of feel like that's something that the data center customers don't want to see anymore. They don't want CPUs that are targeting 95 Celsius. They don't want CPUs that run at 250 plus watts, TDP, PL2, blah, blah, blah. They don't want any of that stuff anymore. So, or long duration turbo boost. Like, that's just not what the industry's looking for, apparently. I don't know how they determine that, but that's how it is. If the 9800X 3D... Oh, wait, there was some other comment. Oh, the OLED. You prefer QD OLED? Yeah, it depends on the panel, though, right? Like, the thing is, I want QD OLED, but I don't like how it's all glossy. Like, give me a QD OLED that has a matte screen. Now, I know that's personal preference, but I'm somebody... There's literally a lamp. There's literally a lamp in the room right here, and it's shining a light like this. If this was a QD OLED with a glossy finish, there would be this annoying reflection of light on the display, and it would be a glaring light that would be annoying. So I can't do that. I have to have a matte screen because there's literally a light here, and I don't want to see glare on the screen. And the nice thing about the WOLED from LG is because it's a matte screen, it completely diffuses the glare, and I don't see that there's a lamp behind me shining light that's reflecting on the screen. So, otherwise, yeah, I think QD OLED looks nicer in terms of peak brightness, but compared to everything else, OLED in general is just straight up better. It's just straight up better. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know why it took me so long. Well, I'll tell you why it took me so long to get into the OLED thing. Is because I was waiting for smaller screen sizes. This screen is a 31.5 inch display. This is the largest screen I will ever buy in terms of like a monitor size. At first I thought, no way, 32 inches is way too big. I'm gonna have to like move my neck all over the place to see the screen, but apparently that's not true. Like I put the monitor at the back, like all the way back on the desk, and I'm sitting about an arm's length. Like, I can put my hand right here. I can almost touch the camera, and the camera is at the top of the monitor. So, like, this is how far away. I'm pretty much arm's length from the display. It's a 32-inch monitor, and I can see everything. My peripheral vision can see everything. So, and it's 4K, so it's so crisp. It's so sharp. There's no problem with reading text, because I know that's a thing that a lot of people were complaining about with OLED. One of the downsides is text clarity, because of the non-standard pixel arrangement is not as good as traditional LCD panels, but with such a high resolution, in this case 4K, it's totally fine because the pixel density is so good that this panel, even at 32 inches and 4K, it is more dense than a 24-inch 1440p. So, in terms of text readability, it's good. Like, I don't even notice any issues with reading text. So it's insane. It's insane, man. And on top of that, if I want to play competitive first-person shooters, I can press a button and then it goes into 480 hertz 1080p mode. And if I don't want it to be this giant 32-inch 1080p, I can letterbox it to a 24-inch form factor on the display for 1080p 480 hertz. Or I can do 27-inch. They give you the option for 27, full 32, or down to 24, which is how I would use it if I was using the 480 mode. But yeah, man, this is like, I've moved into a completely different dimension in terms of display technology going to OLED. I can't believe it. It's like, it's so good. It's like, I don't even know, man. It's like, I just want to keep benchmarking games on this OLED because it's so good. You watch Kit Guru, level 1 text showed that the 7800X3D benefit diminishes with higher resolutions, especially. Yeah, and that's why we're gaming at 4K. It's like, here's the thing, guys. I'm gaming at 4K with a 9700X with 48 gigabytes of DDR5 overclocked to 8,000 mega transfers. And we're doing this at 1.35 volts on the RAM, and we have 1.2 volts on the VSOC. And it's amazing. So it's like, yeah, I could go with X3D, but if I was gonna buy X3D, I personally would wait for the 9800X3D. Meaning, now that the 9700X is out, and as someone who games at 4K, I don't really see the 7800X3D as necessary, or dare I say relevant anymore, for this use case. For me, it's really either regular Zen 5, which is basically the 9700X, or wait for the X3D. Those are the two options, as far as I'm concerned. 24 with the flip. Yeah, there's a menu. There's on the OSD, there's a menu. You can select 24, 27, or just normal 32 for the 1080p 480 hertz. You tried a few LG panels and did not like the matte finish compared to the IPS screens. Yeah, it depends on your room setup, though. Like, if you have... So, okay, in my room, you guys can't see it, but behind... So, okay, where I'm sitting right here, behind the monitor is the wall in the room. But to the left of the monitor, so, like, over here, there's a window. I have a window right here. Now, so if I have a glossy screen, the window's not going to be a problem for me because... the monitor is not, like, you know what I'm saying? The window is behind the monitor. The window is not facing toward the monitor. So I don't have to worry about daylight reflecting on the screen. Now, what I have to worry about is that lamp back there. Because if I have that lamp on, then now, if this was a glossy screen, I would have light literally shining on the glossy screen, and I would have this annoying glare on the top left part of the screen, and that's a no-go, man. That's a deal breaker. We can't have that. So that's the reason why, for me personally, I have to go with a matte screen, because the matte screen completely diffuses the glare, so I can't notice that I have a lamp behind me. So it depends on your personal setup, realistically. So it's like, other than that, it's like, okay, if you can live with a little bit of glare from a lamp, or if you can arrange your furniture in such a way that you don't have a lamp right here that's going to cast a reflection off of your glossy screen. See, that's the thing. That's the only problem with glossy screens. Glossy screens require you to compromise on how your room is set up so that it doesn't cause glare. And I didn't really want to introduce too much rearranging of furniture if I got that cutie OLED. You lost the screw in the case. What you'll have to do is you'll have to pick up the case, turn it upside down, and shake it. That's happened to me before. I literally just unplug everything, take the case, and then like turn it upside down and like shake the case until the screw falls out. You don't want, as long as the screw doesn't fall in the power supply, everything should be okay. But you don't want that screw falling inside the power supply. That could be really, really bad. That could be really bad if a screw fell in the power supply. Is OLED the way to go versus micro LED? Is micro LED the same as mini LED? I'm not too familiar with micro LED. So, I just want to like run around with like the HUD completely turned off. This is almost like playing Cyberpunk 2077. I can even play this game in first-person mode if I wanted, although doesn't really play that well in first-person mode. OLED is the way. Yeah, it is. It is, man. Like, I know you guys, the compression on YouTube is not doing the stream justice, but just looking around in the game world on this 32-inch OLED at 4K, everything is so sharp. Everything looks so good. The colors, the vibrancy, the color gamut, it's like, it's so much different from how I remember playing this game. I really wish I would have gotten one of these like last month when Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail was new. Because I literally played through this game, and now it's like I'm kind of in maintenance mode for this game. And now it's just kind of like... It's awesome. It's awesome, dude. You may do that. You have a lot of HDDs. Yeah, I think you're gonna... Well... The hard drives shouldn't, they should be okay. Man, that's what I've had to do, though. That's all I'm saying. I've had to turn a computer upside down before. Man, the in-game population on this server has gone down a little bit. It's not as packed as it was before. Like, I would say that there's less people just hanging around doing their crafting than there were. Although I think a lot of them are crafting over in the other city instead of this city. This is the Cyberpunk city. The other city is the one where like most of the crafters will probably be. What brand? Oh, you tried... Oh, yeah, you went the MSI. Yeah, the LG... So, there is another variant of this panel from Asus that came out. In fact, I should probably have added it into the description. It's called the PG... You can find it from the link in the description of the video. So, the link in the description of this live stream will link you to the LG Ultragear. But if you scroll down on the page, like the first monitor, probably the first or second monitor that's recommended besides that one is probably called the Asus PG32U-CDP. That's basically the exact same, it's the exact same panel from LG, so it's the exact same WOLED. The only difference is it comes with Asus's ROG stuff. So it's got the ROG stand with the lights on the bottom, whereas the LG has lights on the back of the monitor, and it's RGB, so you can change the color. Like, if you want it to be a different color, you can change it, but yeah. What was the question about the brand? Oh, the magnet? Yeah, that you definitely don't want to fall in the power supply. The main concern is if it falls in the power supply, that could be really bad. You won the 34 OLED from... Wait, they had some kind of, they had some kind of contest? Yeah, so far I was testing... So when I tested this monitor with, like, movies, I watched Dune Part 2 on this screen the other day. And, yeah, man, like... When I was watching Dune, I was thinking, I feel like this movie was meant to be viewed in OLED. Because I remember the first time I saw Dune Part 2, and the first Dune, and I watched it on like a regular TN panel, back in like 2020, whenever that first movie came out. And I remember thinking to myself, it's like, yeah, it looks cool, but it's like so faded. Like, because you know they're on that desert planet, and they're going for that almost like monochromatic color tone in certain scenes, especially with the Harkonnen scenes with the Baron and stuff. It's like watching that on a regular LCD was not that great. Watching that type of scene with the color, with the monochromatic chrome and stuff, like it looks so much better on OLED, mainly because of the true deep blacks. The black level on the OLED makes the color contrast in a movie like Dune looks so clear and so good. And I was like, wow, okay, so this is how this is why people say this movie is so good. And this is how it's supposed to look. It's amazing, but super spendy PG. Oh, the UCD, yeah, UCDM from Asus, that is the QD OLED. But there's another one. There's a newer one that just came out that has the same panel as the LG. That it's the same name, except instead of M, it ends in P. So PG32 UCDP. That one is the W OLED. So that's the Asus monitor with the LG W OLED with the matte screen. That also has the ability to do either 240 Hertz 4K or 480 Hertz 1080p. So that's the nice thing about the W OLED, is it has that dual mode functionality. So not everybody's gonna really care about that. I think anyone who plays like a lot of first-person shooters like CS2, Overwatch 2, you know, even third-person like Gears of War, all those type of games. Yeah, the 480 Hertz mode is probably like a whole nother experience. It's the closest thing we have to like old school CRT in terms of motion clarity. And it's ironic that it's like, oh, 1080p, 480. Well, CRTs were like what? Up to 1080i. Well, they weren't even 16:9. They were 4:3 aspect ratio. So I think the highest end CRTs were like maybe 2560 by 1600, if that. But that's a 16:10, so I don't even think they got up to that resolution. I remember like I used to have a CRT that was 1024 by 768, and I remember playing World of Warcraft Vanilla on that old CRT. And I remember when I got my first flat screen LCD, like a regular TFT 8 millisecond, you know, 1280 by 1024, 5:4 aspect ratio, 60 hertz, that thing versus the CRT. And I remember thinking, man, there's something about the older CRT that just makes it seem better. And that was back before I understood, like, the difference between refresh rate, response time, you know, motion clarity, because CRT was just so much better. Even by today, like with all this new technology, CRT is still better for motion clarity than any of the LCD panels, including OLED. But OLED is the closest to matching CRT. Yeah, what are we talking about? 45-inch curved OLED, but the PPI is pretty bad. Yeah, so, see, the thing is, anything that's like 40 inches or more, to me, that can't be used as a computer monitor. Like, I can't imagine using anything larger than 32 inches as a computer monitor. maybe ultra wide. But other than ultra wide, like, to me, personally, 32 inches is the maximum size that makes sense for a desktop. Sitting on the computer or sitting on the desk, literally right in front of you. I just can't imagine like 40 something inches, you know, like way up, like this huge thing. It would have to be wall mounted. It would have to be so much further back. I'd literally be having to sit like back here. And at this point, it's like, what's the point of buying a 40 something inches if I have to sit so far back from the screen so that I can see everything on the screen without causing myself to get like carpal tunnel syndrome in my neck or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, 27-inch 4K. So that's an excellent comment, Robert. So, just FYI, guys, we talked about this on Thursday. And so for those of you that are wanting to get a 27-inch 4K 240 hertz OLED panel, unfortunately, you're going to have to wait another year, because those panels, 27-inch 4K 240 hertz, basically the panel that I'm using right now, a 32-inch 4K, the shrunken down 27-inch version is coming out next year. This is already confirmed for the QD OLED from Samsung. So next year, Samsung will release 27-inch 4K variants of their QD panel. Now, for LG and the WOLED, they are currently doing feasibility they're completing their feasibility studies either by the end of the year, and most likely, if they will release a 27-inch WOLED that's 4K with this dual function like 480, 1080, and 4K 240. If LG makes this in a 27-inch form factor, the earliest that we'll see it is probably a little more than a year from now. I would say probably September, October of 2025, we should see a WOLED 27-inch 4K from LG. So this is the way. This is true. What I'm telling you guys is fact. We talked about this in the live stream on Thursday on our Tech Thursday show that I do every Thursday. So if you're new to this channel and you want to keep up, you want to like stay in the news of stuff that's coming down the pipe that's in the future, but not like leaks or whatever, because I don't do leaks. I go off of historical context and also what's going on in the industry and what's actually been announced from the vendors and the manufacturers themselves. So if you want more of that sort of info, subscribe to the channel, because that's what we talk about pretty much all the time every Thursday. And if I'm not talking about it, feel free to ask the tech-related question, whether it's about monitors, RAM, SSDs, even USB thumb drives. We can talk about USB thumb drives. We can talk about USB 4. Enterprise stuff like CXL. If anybody actually wants to talk about that, we can talk about that. But otherwise, we typically talk about CPUs, GPUs, basically anything that's in the PC, the PCMR, the PC DIY, the PC gaming space. And we also do cover the consoles as well. There's a lot of discussion on consoles. Like I plan on getting a PlayStation 5 Pro in November when it comes out. So, I also want that PSVR 2 adapter for PC. I've been trying to get one of those, but they're constantly sold out. They literally launched that on Wednesday. So, yeah, I really need to get one of those because my PSVR 2 has literally been sitting in a box collecting dust for like the last 10 months or so. The problem is most games can't reach 240. Even if they can't, the thing is, even if the games can't reach 240 frames, you still get the benefit of the response time and the motion clarity. So that alone justifies these panels, as far as I'm concerned. In addition to the things like the true black, the color popping, the contrast ratio, all the other benefits of OLED are still there. So it's like, even if the game can't do 240, who cares? Because the response time of OLED is so good that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It just feels like it's buttery smooth. You don't even need to use you don't even need variable refresh rate if you're using an OLED. Like, you literally don't need it. Like, it doesn't matter. So, that being said, this panel, the WOLED that I'm using, is a FreeSync Premium Pro model. I did not know that until the live stream I did yesterday, and I went into the AMD Radeon settings, and sure enough, this display is showing up with FreeSync Premium Pro versus my other two monitors from 2017, and those only show up as I think they call it adaptive sync compatible or something. It doesn't even say FreeSync, it's like adaptive sync compatible is what it says for the other monitors. But the thing is, HDZ, like, the thing is, for the competitive games, even if you want them to run over 240 frames, like with this panel, you can activate the 480 hertz mode and then just play the competitive games on the 480 hertz mode. So it's like, it gives you options. That's what I like about it. You're waiting for the Asus RG Swift OLED? Okay, yeah, if you're someone who wants to game at 1440p. See, my problem is, now that I've gotten so used to 4K, I can't go back to 1440p for gaming. I've been spoiled by 4K that to me it'll feel like a downgrade. But I understand that it's not for everybody. Like, some people just prefer that resolution. And that's still a good resolution to game at. I guess I could put this move here. Yeah, I'll do that. 2, 3, 4, 5. Need to fix my buttons. I don't normally use this. This is my benchmark PC. I don't normally play games on it. But just to test the clarity of the OLED, but also the 9700X overclock. I can't remember what these moves are supposed to be. Okay, that's that one. You don't mind 1440 on competitive shooters? Yeah. Yeah. 1440p to me feels so 2017. I don't know. Like, so me personally, I'll tell you guys, like, my journey with resolution uplifts was, so I started my PC gaming experience on a 1024 by 768 CRT for World of Warcraft and Half-Life 2 and Guild Wars 1 and maybe some other PC games way back in the day. Back in like PS2 era, so like the sixth generation of consoles. And then I went to a flat screen 5:4 aspect ratio 1280 by 1024 monitor. That was my first flat screen monitor. And then I went from that to an Asus monitor that was like a 1080p 60 hertz game. It was a gaming monitor, and it was only like 60 hertz, but it was like they advertised 2 millisecond gray to gray response time, and it was my first 16:9 full 1080p, full HD. That was back when, you guys remember when like TVs were advertised as HD, then there were TVs that were advertised as FHD, full HD. So you basically had 720p TVs and you had 1080p TVs. That was when I made the jump to 1080p, and my PC went from being decent to complete garbage. Like, just by upgrading my monitor made my entire PC irrelevant garbage, because my PC literally could not handle 1080p for basically anything except maybe StarCraft 2, but it did not run StarCraft 2 well at all. It was CPU bottleneck through the gazoo or whatever, and I also couldn't even, like, the GPU couldn't even handle 1080p properly. The GPU that I was running when I first went to 1080p, get this, it was the very first GPU that I ever had. It was the Radeon, it was the X850 XT. X850 XT. This was a DirectX 9 GPU. It could not do DirectX 11. It could not do DirectX 10. So goodbye Crysis 2. That wouldn't even work. So it's like the whole meme about, oh, but can it run Crysis? My PC couldn't even run Crysis. Like, it didn't even try. It's like, hey, I want you to run Crysis for me. My PC would be like, nope, time out. I'm not doing it. Sorry, I quit. So I had to get like I had to build a whole nother computer just so I could handle my 1080p monitor properly. So what ended up happening in that era was I ended up playing a lot of console games, because I took my PlayStation 3, and instead of connecting the PlayStation 3 with the mustard and ketchup composite cables to the 480i TV, the CRT TV that I had like way back in the day, I realized, wait a minute, I can connect an HDMI cable from the PlayStation 3 to my computer monitor. It's like mind blown moment. It's like I can experience widescreen gaming on a computer monitor using a PlayStation 3. So that around that era, I played a lot of PlayStation 3 games. You know, like Uncharted 2, Little Big Planet, Metal Gear Solid 4, Ninja Gaiden Sigma 2, the first Ninja Gaiden Sigma, a lot of those games, like Killzone 2, you know, etc. Like all these Sony games, like back in the day, man. Back in the day. So I went from 1080p. So I was on 1080p from like 2009. So yeah, I went to 1080p in 2009. And I was on 1080p from 2009 all the way to the summer of 2017. Basically, when Final Fantasy XIV Storm, this game that we're playing right now, what is so ironic is we're talking about 2017, and we're doing a Stormblood 24-man raid, and Stormblood was the expansion for this game that came out in 2017. So this is so weird. Like, we're talking about 2017, and this is content from a 2017 expansion. That's nuts. What were the chances of that RNG happening? But yeah, I went to 1440p in 2017 for this game that I'm playing right now. And I remember being blown away, because I went from like 60 hertz, 1080p, 22 inch to 144 hertz, 1440p in a 24 inch form factor. And let me tell you, 1440p, 24 inch is the best screen size for 1440p. It makes 1440p look so sharp, look so crisp at that smaller screen size. It is perfecto. Like, it is so good. And that's the reason why I still have the 1440p 24-inch monitor. In fact, I have 3 of them. 2 of them are on the left and the right of this OLED as we speak. So I've had these 1440p 24-inch monitors since 2017. But I made the jump to 4K 2 years ago when I bought the Sony InZone M9. The Sony InZone M9 was the very first 4K panel that I ever used. It's an IPS 4K. It has a pretty good color spectrum. But compared to this OLED, man, this OLED blows that thing out of the water. So for me, the era of 1440p gaming, for me personally, is over. Like, I'm done with 1440p. I was on 1440p for like, what, 5-6 years? Yeah, like 6 years, or 5 years, about 5 years. This is a good test for the overclock stability, because this is an MMO with lots of CPU-bound scenarios, like what's happening right now with all these players on screen, as well as I'm having to do a lot of button inputs constantly. Yeah, this is Final Fantasy 14. Am I on the right? I'm on the wrong side, aren't I? Yeah, I think we're on the wrong side. I think we want to go over here. Yeah, this game, I probably put like 300 hours into this game this year so far, just because of the expansion. The expansion came out at the beginning of July, so it's been out for a little over a month now. The new raid tier is out. I mean, it's good. The 24-man raid is coming in like November. So right now, I've gone into maintenance mode for this game. I've basically done all the mainstream content. PS3 was an amazing platform. Yeah, that was probably the most... That was when I was the most active in playing console games. I feel like I made the jump to PC gaming. I mean, I've always, like, done PC gaming since way back. Like, Age of Empires 2, StarCraft Brood War, Warcraft 3, The Frozen Throne, World of Warcraft. Like, I've been playing PC games since that time frame. But I played a lot of console games during the PS3 era, and I guess the PS2 era. Not as much as the PS3 era, though. And then with PS4, PS4 seemed so underpowered that I just kind of like went to PC and just kind of never really had a reason to go back. But because by that time I became a hardware enthusiast and was into like overclocking and building PCs. 360 was the best. Yeah, it was, man. It was. Those were completely different times, though. Those were different times. The PS3 and the Xbox 360 were unique in that they ushered in the era of multiplayer gaming, online connected consoles. But at the same time, there was not a whole bunch of live service games. There was not a whole bunch of MOBA games. It was through the MOBA, like, it was through that era that the mobile gaming really took off, though. And then mobile games basically permeated the market and ruined everything during the PS4 era and the Xbox One era. And that's why I think, like, that's why gaming now is so much live service based as the money makers. And it's just kind of it's just a depressing thing to think about the more I talk about this. I think if we're here, we should be okay, right? Oh, never mind. I'm gonna get hit with one debuff, but that's okay. I haven't died yet, but I do have a lot of bad... I got 2 vulnerability stacks because I did 2 things wrong. Oh, now he's doing this again. He's doing gun targeting. Reboot. Oh, I barely lived. I barely lived. With my 2 vulnerability stacks, I still managed to survive that. Series X, PS5. I would say Series X, PS5 are better than Xbox One and PlayStation 4. I don't know. To me, when PS5 and Xbox Series X came out, like, those consoles felt powerful. To me, they felt powerful. When PS4 and Xbox One came out, they felt so weak. Like, they came out and they immediately felt underpowered. Am I the only one who thinks that? Or do you guys agree? Like, when PS4 came out, it didn't seem that impressive. The other thing is the games on PS4 didn't even look that much better than the PS3 variant. So it was harder to justify upgrading to PS4. I actually didn't even get a PS4 until, like, 2015. And you know what made me get a PS4? Bloodborne. I didn't buy a PS4 until Bloodborne came out in March of 2015. And the PS4 came out in November of 2013. So it had been almost like a year and a half before I actually got a PS4. Whereas with PS5, I actually got a PS5 on launch day. And I had to deal with that because I'll never forget the experience trying to buy a PlayStation 5 on launch day. I don't know if anyone else watching this live stream experienced what it was like trying to buy computer hardware and gaming hardware in late 2020 all the way through 2021. You guys know what I'm talking about. Anybody who tried to buy an RTX 30 series GPU at launch knows exactly what I'm talking about. You had to stoop to, like, ridiculous things, like browser add-ons that would ping websites to see if they're in stock, nowinstock.com, fix it, 24/7 live streams, Jake Randall live streams, like doing dance moves every time there's like a drop for a console drop. Oh, here we go, guys. Everyone get ready. You know what I'm saying? Why is this tank, like, pulling the boss all the way over here to the wall? Like, this is unnecessary. It's like, it lowers the melee's uptime. So, like, okay, that's some optimization we need to do here. PS5 and Xbox X was missing something you got back on PC. What was it missing? I don't know. I felt like those consoles, they felt powerful. Like, PS5 felt significantly better than PS4. Like, just navigating the menu, the UI, everything about the PS5. Okay, here's the thing. The PS4 was so laggy using the PlayStation Store within the console's dashboard. However, the PlayStation 5 just magically fixed all of that because it was so much better in terms of the hardware. So the basic things, like just trying to navigate through the PlayStation Store, was significantly better. Well, I gotta rescue my little allies here. They're in trouble. I don't know if it's completely random or if they like, if the boss captures the best DPS party members, because I'm playing like a complete scrub right now because I'm talking and reading chat the whole time. So I keep messing up like part of my rotation. So it's like, okay, well, I don't have to worry about like being captured for mechanics because I'm playing so horribly anyway. can't put your finger on it? You feel like 7th gen went for so long? Yeah, 7th gen had a very long lifespan. That's because 7th gen kind of had a long overlap with 8th gen.
The dreams of men are fleeting, yet they must be embraced if they are to flourish. Have you the faith to do as much?
Is she doing judgment? Do I need to focus target her or something? I'm not able to target this. There we go. Oh boy. Oh boy. Are we supposed to do this? What are we supposed to do? Oh, we gotta go over here. Or not. I don't know. PS5 felt like it was a powerful console in 2020. Like 2021, 2022, PS5 felt like it was good. PS5 started feeling like it was outdated last year, though. When those UE5 games started coming out. Oh boy, she's about to do Heavenly Judgment. I don't have the shield. This is gonna hurt. Oh no. I don't know how I didn't die from that. I guess I put the shield up at the last second. I thought I would have died right there. Activate lifesteal. The other thing was that the frame rate was extremely bad on 360, PS3, Xbox 4, Xbox One didn't have much 60. PS5 had like a bunch of 60 FPS titles, but then like last year they started introducing games that had a 60 FPS mode and a 30 FPS mode, and in the beginning it was okay, but last year those games that had the dual mode, like performance mode and visual mode, the performance mode looked like garbage. Look at Final Fantasy 16. Final Fantasy 16 60 FPS mode looks like trash, and it doesn't even hold 60 FPS pretty much all the time except during the combat, and during the battle system it drops to like a dynamic 720p resolution. So it was when those sort of games started coming out, and then later on Lords of the Fallen came out, and Immortals of Avium, and those were UE5 games. The UE5 games make the PlayStation 5 look like it's so weak. And a lot of people will try to defend the consoles, saying that it's not the console's fault, it's the developers, it's optimization, guys. It's an optimization problem. It's lazy developers not optimizing their games. The PlayStation 5 and the Series X have untapped potential. They haven't even achieved their full potential. Like, that is the most, like, fake news I have ever heard, because that's completely not true. Like, the consoles have reached their maximum potential 2 years ago. Like, there's nothing left in the tank. There's literally nothing left in the tank. That's why the PS5 Pro can't get here fast enough. The fact that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth can't run at 60 frames per second with good visuals on a PS5 is proof enough that the PS5 has become weak. And I mean, Final Fantasy 16, that was like more than a year ago. And when I remember playing that game last year when it came out in the summer, and I had to play it in 30 FPS mode. It looked so bad in 60 FPS mode. I had to just, no. I'm like, okay, no. We're gonna have to play this like we're in the PS2 era. Here we go, 30 FPS all over again. All right, boys, let's run around and do these mechanics properly. Okay, here comes arguably, well, this guy became a lot weaker, but this upcoming boss is really hard. He used to be really hard, but I think they nerfed him a few times. Let's see, where's the voice?
Your coming was foretold, servant of Iblis. Or perhaps you serve another. I am Count Sinolphus Orlando. Your journey ends here.
The Thunder God. Alright, here we go. The fight against the Thunder God.
The hearts of men are black with corruption and must needs be cleansed.
He cast Doom on everybody. We need to be healed to full, quick.
I call out to the skies and tremble as the brilliance of 1,000 bolts blinds mine enemies and tears their flesh asunder. 7 shadows cast, 7 fates foretold, yet at the end of the broken path lies death, and death alone.
I remember when this was new, nobody knew how to do this properly. This fight was terrible at launch. This fight was new in January of 2019. This is 2019 content. This was pre-PS5 era right here.
Such is poor cover for when the heavens fall.
Such a trip down memory lane.
Come, show me more. To the current of life we succumb. Its judgment swift and final. Its bite as cold as steel.
You'll be waiting for the 9900X 3D.
Sword is to die by
I'm going with the
sword.
tank.
There is time enough for regret in the flames of hell. Honed is the blade that severs the villain's head. Endless is the path that leads him from hell.
That guy needs to get away from us. Yeah, dude. This guy literally killed like half of us, including the tank. What did he just do? My whole group is almost dead? He killed both of our healers? Oh, I'm gonna have to tank. I'm gonna have to tank because I'm the monk. I gotta go Dragon Ball Z. Here we go. I'm tanking. I'm tanking. Okay, I'm activating life steal. Okay, good. They revived. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh man, this is not good. This is not good. Okay, we're slowly coming up. Oh! Somebody, like, cleave that through our entire group. Killed the tank, killed 2 DPS. Or no, killed 2 healers, the tank, and 1 DPS. So that left me, the machinist, and the dancer. This is not good. I think we're still gonna get past this phase, I think. We're at like 74%. This is a 24-man raid. For those that are wondering what we're doing, this is a 24-man raid. So it's 24 players.
Now know Why?
3 groups of 8.
On my holy blade, the very world lies in balance. And now the scales.
I'm activating my Kaioken attack. Kaioken times 5. Kaioken times 6. Kaioken times 7. Alright, here we go. All out. Forbidden Chakra. Rock Lee. Naruto, Season 1. Here we go. This is it. Rock Lee versus Gaara.
Come, show me more.
Oh, wait. Okay, get away, get away, get away. Oh, those swords are big. Those swords are big.
Escape is not.
Everybody stay close. Everybody stay close. Oh, man. Donut. He just did a Dunkin' Donut on us. Come back over here. We need to come back over here, guys. Get over here.
Were you expecting a modicum of rust?
Oh, not this again. Don't cleave us.
Find my defenses
Don't cleave
quite
us.
Impenetrable.
He almost cleaved us, but he himself died before he could kill all of us with him.
A piteous display.
Clearly somebody hasn't been here before.
They who dwell aloft have spoken, and their words echo in your empty soul. Ruination.
Alright, I think this is the thing where we have to run in a circle. My opinion on the 7900X 3D, I think it's fine. I think the main problem that it ran into was it was always kind of priced in a weird spot.
A moment's hesitation beckons a lifetime of pain.
Give me that, dude. Give me the tether. Someone get it off of me. Yes, hand it to the healer. Okay. Whatever. Doesn't really matter. I remember when this fight was new. Man, so many groups wiped on this fight so many times. No one knew what was going on. Even though it wasn't that different from... Oh, this part. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Donut. Donut. I got the marker. Kaioken times 5. Alright. It's gonna grow to a giant... It's gonna do Frieza's thing. That's the Frieza ball that blew up Planet Vegeta. Oh no, they combined those two together. I need 2 others. I need 1 more. I need 1 more. Get over here. Okay, good. Good deal.
Hark! The screams of ruin rise above the storm.
Kaioken times 5.
Shudder not in the clouds have parted. The skies clear. It is time I bade you farewell.
Did I not roll on any of the other gear? I don't remember rolling on anything earlier. I guess I wasn't paying attention to the loot. I was too busy like reading chat the whole time. Yeah, but the 7900X 3D is really it's a very versatile CPU though. The thing with what I learned was that the 7900X 3D, for some reason, the people who do CPU mining all prefer 7900X 3D for the price point. Otherwise, they would get the 7950X for CPU mining. So the CPU mining CPUs are the 7950X, 7900X 3D, maybe the 7900X, but then anything older than that, like 5950X, 3950X, those are all preferred as well. So Yeah, man, thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it.
Have a good night. Gotta go.
You shall rue the day you raised your eyes to the heavens.
Oh boy. I don't have my buttons mapped properly. Like, why is this here? I really need to fix my buttons. Oh, maybe I can try to fix them here. I'm missing some moves. I'm missing my gap close. Oh, there it is. Missing that. After I'm done with this, I'll test a couple of other games. I just wanted to verify that Final Fantasy XIV works with this overclock. Just because it's like, this is a game that I actually play from time to time. So it's like, if this is not stable, then there's no point in testing anything else. And to make the test even harder, you know what I did? So after I was done using this computer last night, I never turned the computer off. I let the computer go to sleep, which means I was using S3 suspend to RAM. Let me turn this down a bit. The suspend to RAM basically means that all the stuff that was in memory just stayed in memory. So I have not rebooted the computer since yesterday. So if the overclock is unstable, it is more likely to manifest waking the computer from sleep and using it with all that stuff still in memory. You don't hear any rattling, so when you were shaking it, there was no rattling sound? But didn't you say you lost the mini screw? That would mean that the mini screw... Oh, I actually died. I wasn't paying attention. I got hit with a pillar. It just fell on top of me. That would mean that the screw is either on the floor or it's wedged in some spot where it's like not easily coming out. Let's see what these people do. Look, Gohan's dead. Wait, did someone res me? Oh, someone res me. Not anymore. I got wished back from the Dragon Balls. My whole party's dead. Everyone's down. My whole party needs help. Kaioken. Times 2. Times 3. Times 4. Times 5.
Simmer as the light of life before rising to the heavens in a cleansing conflagration of divine benevolence. Your sins, your souls are undone.
Oh boy. This is nice.
You will not intervene.
Just trying to break into the barrier, guys.
I am the only god.
Man, this is so bright on the OLED. Activating mantra. Whoa! Whoa, the brightness! The HDR! It's too much!
Few can claim to have endured the might of my will. Denizens of the abyss, from ink of blackest night, I summon you. Kneel before me.
Oh man.
Your very soul shall
It
not
looks like the only way to reach over 9000 MT on RAM will be with the upcoming Cam 2 RAM.
Yeah. You know what should also do probably over 9000? Cam 2 will do over 9000, but I think the other thing that will do over 9000, LPDDR5 could do over 9000. At least I think it can. Because the LPDDR5 seems like it historically is able to hit higher speeds than the regular, like SODIMM. But that's mostly mobile. But yeah, Cam 2 is something that I think we will see first show up in mobile devices before it shows up in desktop. It could show up in desktop, but I expect to see it in mobile first. And the reason why is because when you think about the way laptops are designed, the Cam 2 form factor, because the RAM is parallel to the motherboard, it makes sense to fit it into a small form factor, like a laptop, for example. Shadow's saying that Cam 2 is not going to come to desktop. Well, it could, but I think it's going to require, like, changes to the way motherboards are designed. You know what I mean? Like, the way motherboards are designed today, all the cables take up a lot of space. All the SSDs take up a lot of space on the motherboard. So until motherboards are doing things like having the cables connect to the back, it's one of those things that we're not going to see immediately, because those sort of changes to form factors and like design standards like the ATX spec, for example, those things are going to take a long time. You also have to remember that things like back-to-front BTF motherboards, they're going to require newer types of cases to support that. Now, Cam 2 won't need that. Cam 2 will work in like a standard ATX case, standard ATX motherboard. But the problem is the space. Like, having enough space on the motherboard to fit the Cam 2 module, or multiple Cam 2 modules, I should say, is what could be the limiting factor. Wow, I don't have these orchestration roles. Wait, this I'm pretty sure I have. Isn't this in one of my glamour plates? Ivelysian Sky Pirates jacket. I'm pretty sure that's in there, so I'm going to pass on that. I know I have that, actually. You think Cam 2 will come out on desktop and Intel will be the first to adopt it, just like they did DDR5 RAM? If they make changes to the ATX spec, probably. But I think right now it's most likely going to come to laptops in the near future. Because I just think of it like, because it sits parallel to the motherboard, it's very similar to SODIMM. SODIMM RAM in laptops is the same thing. It's like, functionally, it's very similar. The RAM goes in, and it sits parallel to the motherboard. So I think Cam 2 is going to be similar to that. But yeah, the one thing that's nice about the Cam 2 form factor is because it's parallel, you don't have to worry about like air cooler compatibility. Because you know, like with RAM, the way it is today, you have, like if you're using a large air cooler, I'm very familiar with this because I use a lot of air coolers. And if an air cooler has 2 fans, typically the front fan has to be raised up, especially if it's a large fan, like a 140mm fan on an air cooler. You have to raise it up, and if the case is not wide enough, sometimes you can't do that. So that limits the cooler compatibility and or the RAM compatibility. You can't have this really tall, like Corsair Dominator memory because it just won't fit. So Cam 2 could solve that problem. Like air cooler compatibility is no longer a concern with that form factor. Well, I leveled up and got all this new gear all of a sudden. Hold on. So wait, if I wear this, does this have anything that I can remove? Good comment though on the Cam 2, because that is something that I didn't even know about that until I saw it at Computex this year. I didn't even know that it existed, to be honest. I don't know if it would come to servers though. I feel like Cam 2 makes sense in mobile, and in an edge scenario, like edge case, it could work in desktop. I don't know how it would go in servers though, because I think servers, you want a lot of density, and unless the cam module, the amount of area that the module takes up, if it is significantly more dense than regular DDR5 DIMMs, then it could be feasible in server. But I think server probably is going to stick with regular DIMMs, just because with server, when you have the RAM vertical perpendicular to the motherboard, you can fit more modules on the server motherboard. So that's why I don't see Cam 2 coming to servers. It could come to desktop, but going to desktop, the challenge is going to be the board real estate, because you have all these M.2 drives taking up a lot of space already. So having to make room for the memory, where are you going to fit the VRM, and how are you going to get more than one module? It's one of those things where it could work on like an ETX board or a Threadripper board, but I don't see it coming to Threadripper, because Threadripper is going to want a lot of density. And like I said earlier, just like with servers, you get way better density when the RAM goes in vertically or perpendicular to the board. Cam 2 is literally the size of an M.2. Yeah, and the thing is, think about how many M.2s are on modern motherboards. Motherboards now easily have like 4, 5 M.2 slots on them. Some have 5, most have 4. It's the ones that have 5 are actually sharing lanes with the GPU though. But in the future, with newer motherboards, maybe with like the next socket, like AM6, maybe that would increase the number of SSDs because it would have more PCIe lanes. So then, yeah, then if you're putting 5, 6 M.2 drives on a motherboard, where's the cam module going to go if all the space is taken up by modules? That's why I feel like there needs to be more innovation in that space. Maybe you move the cables to the back, then you can fit the Cam 2s on the front, and you could put M.2s where the cable connectors would have gone on the front. But then what about the case? Typically, BTF form factor does not work in like 95% of all the cases that are on the market. So it's going to require like a completely new build. You can't carry over your case. It's not only are you going to have to buy a new motherboard, you have to buy a new case. So it's going to drive up the adoption cost. So it's going to become definitely an enthusiast thing if Cam 2 does come to desktop. But I don't see it showing up anytime soon. It's more of like a future-looking technology that may make it someday to desktop, but it might require a whole change in the industry. You know, like motherboards probably have the connectors connecting to the back, so you have BTF motherboards where you're going to need new cases. Where are you going to put the CAM2 modules? Relation to the VRM. You know, how many CAM modules can you fit? If you still want to have like 5 or 6 M.2 drives, there's going to be all kinds of challenges trying to maintain that standard ATX footprint. Otherwise, everything's going to have to get larger. You're going to have to standardize on EATX, for example. And then what does that mean for small form factor builds? You know, like if you're doing a small form factor build, like a micro ATX, you're going to be able to put, what, 1 CAM module in there? And then 2 M.2s, maybe vertically mount them with some kind of riser board. So you have like maybe 3 M.2s on there, all the connectors on the back. Maybe it'll work, but it's going to look really different. Matching the speed, what? People are getting over 20% better performance on 7900 X3D just by matching the speed on the non-X3D. Yeah, not a lot of people talk about the dual CCD X3D CPUs. Those are actually the best Ryzen CPUs as far as I'm concerned. They have the best gaming performance. They have the best productivity performance. So it's like, okay, the 7950 X3D and the 7900 X3D, those CPUs are within 1% to maybe 1 to 2% of the 7800 X3D when it comes to gaming. And then for productivity, they're also within 1 to 2% of the non-X3D for productivity. So those CPUs are the best ones as far as I'm concerned. Like 7950 X3D, that's the best Zen 4 CPU. Like as the latest and greatest CPU for Zen 4, that one's the best one. But for gaming, you don't need to spend that much money to get the same performance tier for gaming because the 7800 X3 exists. So that's the main reason why the 7950 X3 is often overlooked. You know why I can say this with confidence? Because I actually have both CPUs. I have a 7950 X3D. In fact, it's literally right behind me in this PC right here. This PC right here behind me has a ASRock Steel Legend with a 7950 X3D. This is my best all-rounder gaming PC that can also crush productivity apps. So, yeah, that thing is a beast. That's not going anywhere anytime soon until we get like a 9950 X3D. So what I plan on doing is with the current build that I have. So you guys know for my live stream computer, I currently use a 7950X. The 7950X, right now I'm debating whether or not I'm actually going to get a 9950X to replace the 7950X. It's going to depend on the kind of the reviews, but also like the value proposition of that CPU. What I really want to know is, does the 9950X improve the memory capabilities? So what do I mean by that? I'm talking about 2 DPC config versus 1 DPC. I'm talking about like how fast can you clock 1 DPC setups versus 2 DPC setups. That's what I'm going to be looking for when evaluating the 9950X. Now with the 9700X, that doesn't matter as much because the 9700X at the price point that it's at, for the use case that it's intended for, that is typically going to be in a 1 DPC config. You're going to try to get it as fast as possible. You're going to try to tune with curve shaper, all that stuff. You're going to overclock it, whatever. And then it's basically like It's like I said at the beginning of the stream. The 9700X, it's like buying a CPU from 2015 or like from 10 years ago. It's like buying a CPU 10 years ago, evaluating its stock performance, and then if you wanted more performance at the cost of efficiency, you would overclock it and you would see the uplift. That's how it is. And to me, that is a win. That is how CPUs should behave. And I think AMD basically went back with the old school style of, we're going to put this out on the market, low TDP, very energy efficient. It doesn't exceed like 70 degrees Celsius under full load while running productivity. It doesn't even exceed like 65 degrees Celsius while gaming. Like, that's the hottest you'll see it get. Unless it starts compiling shaders. Typically, while gaming, this CPU doesn't really go above 60 degrees. You know, like, ever. So, it behaves so well at stock, but it's like if I want it to run even faster, I'll just overclock it, and then, okay, now I can either just turn PBO on, and then it's just going to try to go to 95C, just like the 7700X, but now everything's going to perform faster. It was just one button. So it's like, it's that simple. And then if I want to optimize it even further, that's what you do with Curve Optimizer and now Curve Shaper. So to me, the 9700X is just, I wouldn't even consider the 7700X anymore. Even if it's discounted, I wouldn't get one. I would just get the 9700X. And if I wanted X3D, I would just wait for the 9800X3D. I won't even get the 7800X3D. Now, if you can get a really good deal on a 7800X3D, then that is worth considering, rather than having to wait for some undefined amount of time for the X3D on Zen 5. But for the dual CCDs, this is a little bit different because those are higher end CPUs that are meant for workstation, and I think most people would agree that those CPUs are going to be used for productivity apps most of the time. Now, can you use them for gaming? Of course you can use them for gaming. You can literally use Threadripper for gaming. Now, should you? No. Can you? Yes. So, as someone who has a Threadripper and has played games on Threadripper, you can totally game on Threadripper if you wanted to. But it is way too overkill in terms of what you're building for just playing games. But I think at the end of the day, the reason why AMD launched the 9700X at 65 watt TDP was because they probably thought, okay, when we launched Zen 4, everybody complained about it trying to constantly target 95C, and no one seemed to like that. That was kind of the negative aspect of it, even though that wasn't really that bad. So what do? Okay, they lower the power limit for the default BIOS behavior in the microcode for these Zen 5 CPUs. And now what do the reviewers say? Oh, it doesn't perform enough. It doesn't have enough uplift. It's too conservative. It's too conservative. The power limit's too low. It's power limited. So it's like there's no pleasing the crowd. It's like if you let it go balls to the wall out of the box, they're gonna complain about it running too hot. But if you make it behave well, they're going to say, oh, it's too power limited. Oh, it's too power limited. It's too conservative. You know, like, there's no pleasing the crowd. It's like, no matter what, it's like you're doomed no matter what you do. Like, they're going to say something negative regardless. So, yeah, I basically ignore the reviews because most of them don't know, they're missing the point. Like I said in my unboxing video, I think a lot of reviewers miss the point in terms, or they completely forgot what it was like buying a CPU 7 years ago or even 10 years ago, where it was not overclocked out of the box. You had to actually tweak it if you wanted. But if you were someone who didn't care about overclocking, the CPU was well behaved. It wasn't going to self-destruct the way Intel made the 14th gen CPUs until having to do the whole microcode fix, because that was a huge fiasco. We all know that. And nor did they try to go ramp up as fast as they could until they can get 95 Celsius, like with the Zen 4 CPUs. So that's not how CPUs behaved 10 years ago. So I think Zen 5 is a return to form. It is a return to the way things used to be. And ultimately, I think that's better than the way Zen 4 behaved. And it's way better than the way Intel CPUs currently behave, with blasting power and heating up the entire room while gaming and turning your gaming cave into a sauna. So, because the GPU already generates enough heat. Like, do I really need another component dumping a lot of waste heat in the room when the GPU already does enough of that? So, I think the Zen 5 CPUs, the way they launched, are fine. I'd recommend this over pretty much anything right now, except if you're looking for productivity, or if you're looking for, like, the best of the best for, like, a 1080p gaming setup, then maybe the 7800X3D on a discount makes more sense. What are we talking about? Micron is already sampling 8800 MT with capacities up to 128 gig. Interesting. In BIOS, go to AI tweak. What are we talking about? PBO. You're using a 78. Kira's using a 7800X3D, and you don't run into any issues when using the PC with shutdowns and restarts, but every overnight boot, I have to clear CMOS and load my BIOS. You don't run into any issues when you're using the PC with shutdown. What BIOS version are you on? The first, whenever somebody asks those type of questions, my first question is, what BIOS are you on? Are you on the latest BIOS? Because that sounds like an old BIOS bug for S3 suspended RAM. So are you using suspended RAM? I assume you're using suspended RAM. Basically sleep. Meaning, when you're done using the computer at night, you don't shut it down, you let it go to sleep. That's what I do. In fact, this CPU, with this overclock, last night I was using it. When I was done using it, I did not shut it down. I put it to sleep. And then before I started this stream, all I did was literally wake it up, set up the stream, and start streaming. But that sounds like an old BIOS thing. And the easiest fix is update to the latest BIOS. I'm imagining you're also running your RAM above 5200 megahertz. Because that was a thing, so... Hold on, let me... Hold on. Is it paint time? Is it paint time? Hold on. What happened here? Oh, it's way over here. Let's see. Okay. So... Whoops. Old Agisa BIOS had DDR5 S3 sleep, basically suspend to RAM issues, where if you were on 6000, if the RAM was, I want to say it was like 5600 or higher, sleep would not work, because either it was like flipping bits, or there was some weird thing where I ran into that issue myself. That's why I know exactly what that issue is. You basically update the BIOS and it's fixed. The other thing is, you want to make sure, there's two things. The fix, number one, update to the latest BIOS. That's like mandatory. That's literally required if you want to fix the problem. Number two, make sure memory context restore and power down. I think it's called power down enable is enabled. That's how you fix this problem. But you have to be on the latest BIOS because on the older BIOS, these features don't actually work correctly. So the first thing is you got to be on the latest BIOS. The second thing is you can turn these things on. This will make it, okay, what this does, memory context restore caches the values for the memory training results into the NVRAM. I believe it's some sort of NVRAM on the BIOS, so that the next time you cold start the computer or you restart the computer, it just reads from some table in NVRAM the values, the primary timings, then it'll just set it'll set all the tertiaries real quick, and you post very quickly. This setting, power down enable, this is what will allow S3, aka sleep mode, or standby mode to work. Like, this must be enabled if you want this functionality to work correctly. For Taichi B650E, anything above 2.1 BIOS. Okay, what I recommend is the latest, but let me see. We'll look up that memory. B650E Taichi. Okay. Hold on, where is it? Oh boy, why is it so huge? Oh, it's because we had like memory Zen timings or something up the other day. Okay, so the B650E Taichi, this specific motherboard equals X870. This is an X870 motherboard because it is a B650E chipset and it has USB 4. It literally has Thunderbolt support. So this is an awesome motherboard. This is ASRock's flagship B650 motherboard. So what I would recommend is going here, clicking on BIOS, and downloading the latest version right here. This supports Ryzen 9000 CPUs. So the oldest BIOS that will support Ryzen 9000, like a 9700X, is a BIOS from May 17th of this year. AMD Agisa 1170 was the first microcode update to add support for the Ryzen 9000 series. But the newer one, 1.200A, this is the latest one. So I would recommend going to this one. That's what I'd recommend. So you're saying anything 2.1? This will be okay, but why go to this when you can go to this? I would rather go to 306 than 2.1. So that's what I would personally do. I have a video on how to do this. You're going to have to change, well, no, you don't need to do that though, caveman. You don't need to use the flashback. BIOS flashback is unnecessary if you're just wanting to update the BIOS. You can just go into the BIOS and update it from within the BIOS, which is the preferred method. I would actually prefer to do it that way. But yeah, if it depends on whatever you're more familiar with. If you're more familiar with using BIOS flashback, use BIOS flashback. But if you don't need to use BIOS flashback, I would say it's better to update the BIOS from within the UEFI dashboard because you can see the progress happening. You can watch the progress bar. I have a YouTube video showing how to do a BIOS update specifically for ASRock motherboards. I show how to update the BIOS for an X670E ASRock Steel Legend. So I recommend you check out that video, because that search for like how to update the ASRock BIOS or something on this channel, you'll find the video. That's probably the best video that shows how to update the BIOS within the BIOS itself. Otherwise, you can use BIOS Flashback, which is actually the video that I did recently. So if you go look on my channel, the video from last Thursday shows how to use BIOS Flashback. Do you know what version you're running? The first question I had, did you answer the question about like what BIOS version? Oh wait, did you say you're using, okay, you said 2.10. Well, 2.10 is actually not super old. Oh, you shut it down though. No, don't. Well, if you don't use sleep, you don't need to use sleep. So, okay, hold on. So you're shutting it down completely. To clear the CMOS and load back the BIOS. Are you running the processor stock? Like, you're not running curve optimizer or anything, right? Like, is it just stock? The 70HX is running stock? That BIOS is not that old. See, what I was referring to was a BIOS that was older than 1007. Like, older than this. The problem that I'm talking about was fixed somewhere in 2023. It's been fixed for a while. In fact, it might have been this one right here that says Enhanced S3 mode. That might have been the one that fixed the issue that I was describing. Once the PC is boot, use this without any issues. Oh, but see, you are using PBO and all core. See, what I would suggest you do, the first thing that I would say you should do is remove PBO, disable PBO, and then see if it still does that. What could be happening is you have an unstable overclock, meaning your -40 might be too aggressive, and it's like there's either too much. I think what's happening, or what could be happening, is when you turn it on, and if you're having to clear CMOS, when you turn it on, the pull-up voltage is too low. Like there's too much V droop potentially, because your PBO is like -40, and it might just be too much without LLC. So that could be what the problem is actually. Yeah, in general, it's still good practice to be on the latest BIOS, but in your case, I don't think updating the BIOS will fix the problem. I think the other thing too is it could be your RAM. So is your RAM running oh no, you are running a custom RAM. Like CL28 might be too much. That could be the other thing too. What's the voltage you're running on the RAM? Is this RAM running at like 1.35? 1.4 or something? It could be RAM. This is starting to sound more like it's a RAM thing to me rather than a BIOS thing. Yeah, you don't have to update the BIOS because I don't think that's going to fix this problem. It could. I don't think it's going to fix the problem though. I think it's one of two things. It's either the V droop is too much for the negative offset you're applying, or the RAM is overtuned on the timings and you need to loosen the timings, or you need to raise voltage on RAM. But I would try looser RAM. Look, I would say this. What is that RAM kit? What is the RAM kit? what I would do, okay, this isn't needed anymore, so is this the RAM kit's XMP profile? If you're running 6400, I assume this is an XMP memory kit, because I have a similar memory kit. This is what, CL 30 or something, 32 you said? And then what is the voltage, 1.4 or 1.35 or something like that? What is the voltage on that? This is what I would do. In the BIOS, I would say, for the divider mode, I would say U clock equals half M clock. I would set this. I would set it to run at 6400 CL32 and see if this works. Oh, and make sure F clock, fabric clock, or I guess they call it infinity fabric clock, which is basically F clock. This should be 2000 megahertz. That doesn't need to be anything higher than that. For Zen 4, this should stay at 2000. Then I would say the divider, I guess it's called memory. What do they call it on ASRock? It's like memory divider ratio or something. U clock equals half M clock. I would do that. This is what I would do. And then the other thing, VDD equal 1.3. So this depends on what the RAM is actually supposed to be. I would actually leave all the voltages on auto. VSOC 1.2. Yeah, VSOC should stay at 1.2. VDD 1.4. You can leave the voltages on auto, I would think. Let's check QVL. So I go here and you have a 7000, not a 8000, so that's going to be Raphael. Raphael is the code name for Zen 4 Ryzen 7000. So then we will now go to a find, and here's your memory kit. This is Hynix A die, which means it would be 1.4 volts and 6400. And it is certified. It is qualified to run on this board in a 2-DIMM configuration as of BIOS version 1.28. Well, I want to see if it'll run stable, if the rebooting, not being able to do anything without clearing CMOS will work, if the memory ratio is set to half. Because that could be it. However, 6011 should work. But I don't think your 28 thing is going to work. That's the thing. See, the reason why I'm telling you to do this, to basically run it with the XMP profile, I would rather you test this and make sure this is working. And this will require this. That is a requirement for this to actually work 100% stable, including sleep mode. You know why I know this? Because I have RAM that runs at this, at 1.35. And you know what I do? I run it in Gear 2 mode. I've been running it like that for a year. Guys, this is how the stream computer, the computer that I use for Tech Thursdays, is set up this way. These settings that I'm recommending are the exact same settings that the computer that you see me use every Thursday for the live stream show. It's literally set up like this. It's Gear 2, 2000 F clock, and 6400 CL32. I'm pretty sure it's CL32, 1.35. Oh, but your RAM is 1.4. So no, you wouldn't do this. You would let it do what it wants to do, in this case 1.4. 6400 can, but it depends on your chip. You can only do 6400 if you have a golden sample. I cannot do 6400 with my 7950X. So this is the reason why, to troubleshoot, I tell people to do this. Because if it works like this, then I know it's a RAM problem. Yeah, that means you have a golden sample, but I can't do that. I don't have a golden sample. So 6400 is not for everyone. So this is why I'm telling people, like, you have to test this if you want to run above 6000 and you want to ensure that it's stable. If it works, if this works, then only then do you try the 1.1, because the 1.1 might not work. Because I'm thinking in this case, if you're doing 6000 MTS at CL28 at 1.4 volt, this is not easy to do. Like, you're probably, you know what you're probably gonna have to do? You're probably gonna have to do if you want 1.1, you do 6000 CL30 at 1.4 volts. This is, if you want to keep it at 6000 and you want to keep the 1.1 ratio, this is what I would do. Like, if I was troubleshooting this is, well, the first thing I would do is load XMP and set Gear 2 mode. That's the first thing I would do. Assuming that works, then you can try this. But it's up to you. You can do either one. It's either one. It's however you want to troubleshoot it. Oh, I should be able to do 6400 1.1 on the 9700X. Okay, I have not tried that yet. What I'm actually more curious to do is try to overclock the fabric. I want to see if I can run the fabric at like 2400 megahertz. Yeah, let's do this. Hold on, where is, okay. This is what I'm running, to give you an idea. This is my Zen timings on a 9700X. So we're currently running 8048 gigabytes. That's 2x24. We have gear down mode enabled. M clock is 4 gigahertz. So you do DDR, double data rate, that equals 8000. So you guys can see it right here, 4 gigahertz in the top right. F clock 2000, U clock 2000. That is a 1-to-1 ratio between fabric and memory controller, which means there's no buffering. Then, very much like Zen 3, then we have U clock half M clock. See? So 2000 is half of 4000. But it just so happens that it becomes equal to the fabric. So, and then we've got these. This is literally just the XMP profile. And then here's the voltage. Here's the magic voltage, guys. We're doing 8000 at 1.2 VSOC, and we're doing 1.35 on the memory. On the VDDIO, the VDDQ, the VDD, it's all 1.35 volts. And then these are the tertiaries. Now, I have not bothered to do any tuning. I'm just trying to make sure that everything works the way it's supposed to. But yeah, that's basically how I have it set up. Now, the other weird thing I noticed is that the BIOS, I don't know if this is a thing with Zen timings. I'm pretty sure I enabled power down. So I don't know why it's saying power down disabled, because I'm fairly certain I enabled power down. And the fact that I put the computer to sleep last night, woke it up today and started streaming with it immediately, and I'm not sure why that's the way it is, but that's what it says. So it could just be Zen timings or something being wrong. Who knows? should voltage for mem VDD be? Typically it is the same. What I'll tell you is this was set to auto. I did not set these. The XMP profile that I loaded from the memory set these automatically. Now, if your BIOS doesn't know what to set it to, I'm not sure what it would do. It would, but typically it reads it from the SPD profile. But the RAM itself is supposed to be doing 8000. This is the new Hynix M die. That's the reason why it's able to do such a high speed at such a low voltage. And you know what's so nice about it? The RAM doesn't get hot. The hottest this RAM can get is like 50 degrees Celsius at this speed. And the reason why that's true is because this voltage is so low. The lower the voltage, at the higher the speed, the better. This is always the preferred way when you're overclocking. You always want the lowest voltage at the highest speed while maintaining 100% stability. That is the name of the game. You're curious to know what will happen with 4 DIMMs? I'm going to investigate 4 DIMMs. I have 2 of these kits. I have 4 sticks that are all rated to do 8000. I will be doing a video about that. I do plan to investigate like 4 sticks of DDR5 on the Ryzen 9000 series. The most I was able to do on the Ryzen 7000 was 4 sticks, 4 times 48. That's 192 gigs of DDR5. I was able to get that running at 6000. Gear 2. Now, I don't know if Gear 1 is... Maybe Gear 1 could have been possible, but I did not want to run VSOC at like 1.3 volts. I was doing 192 gigs of RAM with a VSOC of 1.2 volts. That's 4 sticks of DDR5 maxed out. 4 times 48 for a total of 192. I was doing that at 1.2 on the VSOC and 1.35 on the VDD and the VDD-IO. But the thing is, here's the thing. What nobody... This YouTube channel is probably the only YouTube channel that shows you how to run 4 sticks of DDR5. It's very hard to do because of the memory traces on the physical motherboard. And the tweak requires you to understand impedance. So if you want to do 4 sticks of RAM, it's not about the voltage. Running these voltages really, really high is not going to help you achieve higher speeds on on 4 sticks of DDR5. What is going to change, what is going to make it possible is this stuff right here. Proc ODT, Proc CADS, Proc DQDS, DRAM DQDS, the RTT nominal write, the RTT nominal read, the RTT write, RTT park DQDS. These are the secret parameters that you have to tweak if you want to run 4 sticks of DDR5 at 6000 megatransfer. I have a video showing how to do this. I'm not making this up. Go watch the video. It's called, check out on the channel, look for like, I think the video title is like 192, or it's like 4 sticks of DDR5. It was a video I did like way back at the start of this year. But yeah, it's possible. I would recommend trying for like 5600 though, at most. Try 50, if you want 4 sticks, like 128 gigs, 192 gigs, try to do 5200 first, and then try to walk it up before trying to go to 6000, because it's like, you have to play around with these values, because if you don't, it's just not gonna work. And it goes back to what Shadow said a few minutes ago. It's all about the memory controller, no, not the memory controller, the traces on the physical motherboard 2 sticks is lower latency, so you stick to 2 sticks. Yeah, if you're only playing games, it's like you don't need 4 sticks of RAM. But the thing is, a lot of people need the extra capacity. A lot of people want a lot of RAM because they're using their machine for more than just gaming. They're doing some kind of productivity stuff. Like, for example, DaVinci Resolve, Adobe Suite, like all that stuff can use a whole lot of RAM. So X870E should push 4 DIMMs beyond 6000. Okay, see, that is what I'm waiting for at this point. I am waiting for those X870 motherboards. But yeah, go watch the videos, man. Guys, I have so much content on this channel about 4 sticks of DDR5. I think I'm the only person on the internet that has made videos dedicated to this subject, specifically 4 sticks of DDR5. Don't watch the older videos. Watch the video, the most recent videos that I did for 4 sticks. The video I did for like 192 gigs of RAM. I think the thumbnail says like max tuned DDR5. Like it's like 192 gigs DDR5. Let me see if I can actually find the video. Wait, hold on. So you guys look at the right one, because I did a whole bunch of older videos that might not be relevant anymore. Let me find it. Here's one. How to run. Okay, this is one. Can you run 4 sticks? That's another one. But probably the one that shows it is this one right here. So the video from like 6 months ago.
Hey YouTube.
Okay, so hold on. Let me show the video real quick. Oh, and we're gonna have to shrink it down again because it's gonna be gigantic. Oh. Why is it not showing up now? This video. So the title of the video is 192 gigabyte DDR5 at 6000 AM5 max tune. How to run 4 sticks DDR5 at high speed 2D PC. I made this video 6 months ago. It was like January of this year. So the secrets have been revealed. This is not new. There you can see the 4 sticks right there. We go over like what I'm actually using. Oh, I got signed out of the game because I was AFK too long. Whatever. Alright, let me exit out of that. Okay. Almost 7 months. The answer for the RAM has been on the channel for so long. So this RAM that you guys see right here, one of these kits is the RAM that I'm running right now with the 9700X. The other one is an identical kit. It's 4 sticks of DDR5 up to 8000. Oh, actually, no, I take that back. Completely wrong. Ignore that. That was a different video. This is the 6400 mega transfer CL32 1.35 volt. It's in the description of the video, guys. If you want to know the exact RAM, look at the description of the video. All the links are in the video. But, like, literally, okay, here's the thing. Step 1, install the RAM correctly. The first kit goes on channel A. The second kit goes on channel B. Don't mix and match. They gotta go on the same channels. But if you watch the video, all the details are there, how to install them correctly. So basically, I spent a whole bunch of the video right here explaining how you gotta put one kit of RAM on one channel. Meaning, A1 and A2 have the 2 sticks from the first box. B1 and B2 have the 2 sticks from the second RAM kit. You do not mix them. They gotta be on the same. You gotta isolate them to their actual like groups. You got to group them together. So it's all here. So it's there. It is. It's doing the training. Code 15. It's doing the training. It does the training. Here we go. It trains to 3600. It's 192 gigs. We go over the whole thing. I talk about proc ODT, impedance this, impedance that, resistivity. Why are we doing this? Because we're adjusting the resistor value on the wire. Because like Shadow said a few minutes ago, it's all about the wire and the resistance, killing off the signal. Just watch the video. If you guys are interested in this subject, specifically watch the video. Like that, I don't need to go over that anymore. The other video though,
doing this video.
This video right here, it's more recent. This one was from 3 months ago. This was April. This one shows the okay, this is like a similar video, but this is another like overclocking guide, but this is like 4 sticks of DDR5.
Then these two need to go on the other two.
So here, this one actually is on. I filmed this video a lot better than the first video. The camera angles are better, and like showing how to install the RAM. Okay, this is a good example. So notice I've got 2 black sticks of RAM on channel A, and I got 2 silver sticks of RAM on channel B, because the black kit was 1 kit of RAM and the silver one was another kit of RAM. Notice how I grouped them together. I do not mix them. They have to be on the same channels, meaning the 2 from the first batch, they have their own micro sub-tolerances and that sort of thing. So when the memory training is happening, the BIOS will be like, okay, so channel A needs to have a tertiary of, 24. And then channel B is a little bit better, so we're going to set that one to 23. So that's why you do not mix them. They have to be isolated. Unless you buy a kit that literally comes with 4 sticks of RAM, you have to do it this way. You have to put one kit of RAM on one channel and the other kit of RAM on the other channel. This is one of the secrets. This is one of the techniques that will ensure this works. Otherwise, if you mix them up, like if I do black, white, it's probably not going to work, because it is like the black sticks of RAM versus the silver sticks of RAM. They probably have they're from different memory batches because they were manufactured at different times. So there could be some micro differences in terms of their tolerance on the wire. And that's the reason why you don't want to mix them up. So then we go through the training. This is on an ASRock board. So if you guys want to see it on ASRock, the older video, the 192 gigabyte video, this one is on a gigabyte motherboard. But this one, the 96 gigabyte 4 stick, is on an ASRock motherboard. But that is, basically it shows like all the stuff that we changed. And then I go in here and I set it to 56. It can work at 56. So I'm like, okay, let's go for the max OC. Let's go to 6,000. Here are the impedance values that we need to change in order for this to work, because we're dealing with the resistance of the wire traces on the motherboard or the memory. So then once we do this, then we get into Windows, we verify it's working, and then we do some benchmarks, and we do some stability tests like mem tests. I do a lot of that offline, and then it just kind of shows the results. But the other one, though, I think this is the one that a lot of people are more curious about, because this one is 192 gigs. Did I try the low latency, high memory? No, I did not. Not for this. Not for 4 sticks. Because I just wanted to make sure I can get it to work at 100% stability. And I think trying to use those settings would introduce instability. But I did not bother to test those. With 2 sticks, yeah, that's probably a thing. But with 4 sticks, I don't know if that's going to work. Because 4 sticks is hard to do. But yeah, check out these videos. And then the other video that I'd recommend, for those who were asking earlier, this video right here. How to update the BIOS. Like, there were people talking, there was the whole troubleshooting thing earlier about like potentially it being an old BIOS. If you want to update the ASRock BIOS, or you want to use BIOS flashback, it's pretty much the same procedure, but like I literally show all the steps for how to do BIOS flashback in this video. And this video was from like Thursday. This past Thursday. So yeah. It's amazing like how many questions come up in the chat, and every time I read the question I'm thinking, man, I have a video on the channel that answers this question. For 8,000, yes, you definitely want 8,000 F-clock. Or you want 2,000 F-clock for 8,000. For the reasons that I explained. Better latency. Oh, no, I have not enabled it yet. I will try that. I'll try the low latency stuff when I start doing, like, the video for the RAM. For Zen 5. Before Gigabyte updated the BIOS, the PC didn't even post using 8,000, so I used for 6,000 for some weeks till they updated like the first. Well, the 8,000 sticks are relatively new though, right? You had 8,000 kits for that long? I didn't even know DDR5 8,000 existed a year ago. Oh, wait, maybe it did. Yeah, I think it was new last year. Yeah, I remember. It was new last year. But I'm thinking of the new M-Die. Yeah, so this is what I really want to know. What I want to know is can the 9700X run F-clock equal 2400 megahertz? This is like the biggest question in my mind. Like, this is what I want to know, because I remember Pharonics tested the 8700G earlier this year, and they were running the F-clock on that monolithic die at 2400. So I'm really curious to know if the fabric on a Zen 5 CPU can do 2400. Because the reviewers, I read some reviews that were saying that that's not possible. Like, I think Tech Power Up said that F-clock can be in the range of 2,000 to 2,200. Like, that's what Tech Power Up said in their review. So if this is true, then that changes some of what I said earlier. Yeah, Zerbauer was testing F-clock at 2100. I also was testing my CPU at 2100 F-clock the first day that I had it, but I didn't really notice anything different. So, I don't know. So, I'm really curious to know if it can do 2400 though, because my numbers that I gave you guys last time, remember when I said Gear 1, or like I said max Gear 1 equals unknown at this point in time, and I said max Gear 2 equals 9600 mega transfers on the RAM. Remember when I said that? Do you know why I said this? I said this because I'm making an assumption. When I said this, I was assuming that the F-clock would run at 2400. This number is derived from this number. That's where I'm getting the number. What do I do to determine that number? 9600 divided in half, and then divided in half again. That's 2400. That's where the number comes from. Just like when I say that for Zen 4, max Gear 1 equals 6000, max Gear 2 equals 8000. I think it's pretty clear to everybody where these numbers are coming from. This comes from U clock equals M clock. This comes from U clock equals F clock, which also happens to equal half M clock to achieve this speed. Because it is 8,000 divided by 2 equals 4,000 divided by 2. Well, you guys get it. So this is equals M clock, and then U clock equals half M clock equals 2,000 megahertz. That is where we derive 8,000 for the Gear 2 mode. This is why. So, if theoretically, if F clock on Zen 5 equals 2400, it's the same math. 9600 divided by 2. 4800 equals M clock. However, U clock equals half M clock. You plug in the numbers. You get 2400 for your U clock, which in this case we're talking about U clock equal F clock. Therefore, F clock would be 2400. So all of this is talking about Gear 2, or the 2-to-1 divider ratio between U clock and M clock. Now, it looks to me, according to what I've read in the chat, it sounds like, remove all of this. It sounds like according to what I'm hearing, I'm going to test this, max Gear 1 should be 6400 this time around for Zen 5. This is Zen 5. Whereas this one over here is Zen 4. So for Zen 4, max Gear 1 equals 6000. So based off of what I'm reading in the chat, it sounds like this is the new upper bound for Gear 1 mode, which is very, very good news if true, because I currently have 2x 48 gigabyte equal 96 gigabyte DDR5 6400 XMP CL, I think CL32 1.35 volt. This is my main memory kit. Like, this is my main RAM. This is the RAM that I currently use in my Tech Thursdays PC. So, but I run it in Gear 2 today. But if I swap to a 9950X, based off of what I'm hearing, I can now run Gear 1 with this 96 gigabyte kit. That is very good news, if true. So, if that's the upper bound. But now it sounds like, okay, so for this one, max Gear 2 equals 8000. Okay, well, you guys know megahertz, it's actually megatransfers. Oops, oh well, whatever. It's the same thing. Okay, and then if F clock cannot reliably run 2400, now it's no longer 96. Now it's a question mark. Now I don't actually know what the upper bound for the Gear 2 mode is for Zen 5. Because okay, here's the thing. This is the conclusion. So it's like it's like answering homework or something on an exam. It's like this is part A. This is part A. This is part B. And now part C. The conclusion. What do we derive from this? What this tells me is what this tells me is that we should be seeing Expo kits from AMD, or like newer memory kits, Expo kits, that have 8,000 as a profile, or maybe something higher than 8,000. But, oh, the conclusion that I was thinking about was Gear 1 or I guess the Gear 1 limit depends on the U-clock. The Gear 1 limit depends on the U-clock. That is what bounds its highest number. So in the case of 6,000 DDR5, that was what everyone calls the sweet spot for Zen 4 CPUs. Why is that? That's because the U-clock typically maxes out at 3 gigahertz. Yes, you can overclock it to like 3.1, and maybe if you're lucky, 3.2. But most Ryzen 7000 CPUs max out around 3 gigahertz on the memory controller, which equates to 6,000 on DDR5. Meanwhile, the Gear 2 limit depends on the... Okay, now I want to see if the chat has been paying attention. So what is the answer here? Fill in the blank. Fill in the blank. What is the upper limit? What determines the upper limit for Gear 2? And for those who do not know what I'm talking about, because I know Gear 1, Gear 2 is actually Intel terminology for DDR5 typically. And Gear 1 doesn't exist on Intel. It's a myth. It's a meme. But we're talking about the ratio. We're talking about U-clock equal M-clock when we're talking about Gear 1. So we're talking about a 1-to-1 ratio when we're talking about Gear 1. And we're talking about Gear 2, we're talking about U-clock equals half of M-clock. We're talking about that 2-to-1 ratio when we say Gear 2. So here is the pop quiz. Which clock in the I/O die determines the limit, the upper limit of the Gear 2 speed? Do I need to make this a poll? Let's make it a poll. Hold on, where's the... How do I do this again? How do I do the poll thing? I don't even see an option to do it on here. Oh, engage with the audience plus, start a Q&A, start a poll. Okay. Let's see. Let's see what if people are paying attention. The Gear 2 upper limit depends on the blank. On the blank. And the choices are... I'm going to make it multiple choice, so that should make it a little bit easier. Okay. Should I do a fifth one? Oh, I can't do a fifth one. Okay. Here we go. The poll is up. The Gear 2 upper limit depends on the blank. Okay, so far, let's see what we got here. Wait, how do I see? Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay, we have like 24 concurrent viewers and 5 votes. The choices are M clock, F clock, U clock, E clock. Jordan just joined, has no idea what's going on. You just walked into an exam, my friend. People are taking an exam right now. It's a multiple choice question. It wasn't supposed to be multiple choice, but it's a multiple choice question. We are literally talking about this right now. You literally walked into this. We're talking about the ideal speeds. Perfect timing. All right, okay, we have 50% of the viewers have voted now. I'll leave it up for one more minute. What kind of math is this? I mean, it is all math, actually. Unfortunately, for those who weren't paying attention, we erased a lot of it. A lot of the math was worked out earlier, a few minutes ago. I want to see if I can get, like, 3 more people to vote. It went at 13 votes. Okay, I think we're gonna end it here because we need to move on. All right, so we're gonna end the poll. All right, so 61% of you said F clock, 15% said M clock, 15% said U clock, and 7% said E clock. So the correct answer is, hold on. Those of you, the 61% of you who said F clock are correct. It is determined by the F clock. The fabric is the determining factor, or I guess the limiter, that will determine what your upper bound is on Gear 2. Meaning, you want to try to match up the F clock with your memory controller. So you want, meaning the ideal speed. So this would imply that ideally the U clock should be very close, if not equal to, the F clock when you're running the RAM at such a high speed. So the closer these two are together, the lower the latency due to buffering is. And if they're exactly equal, then there's no diminishing returns happening. But there's also no higher frequency on the U clock. So that's the reason why Gear 2, that's the reason why 8000 DDR5 is not that hard to run on an AMD-based system compared to an Intel system. So let me repeat that for those that just joined. Running 8000 DDR5 is easier to achieve on a Ryzen CPU than it is on an Intel CPU. You can pretty much run 8000 on any motherboard. Any 4-DIMM motherboard can handle 2 sticks of RAM at 8000 most of the time. I've had I've tested this with 3 different motherboards. One of them was a $500 motherboard. The second one was a $250 motherboard. And the other one was another motherboard that was somewhere between $200 to $300. And I can tell you, all 3 of them can handle 8000, the motherboards that is. And then I've tested 3 different Zen 4 CPUs. And all 3 CPUs can run 8000 on all 3 different motherboards. So it is very easy to do. Meanwhile, I have tried to run 8000 on an Intel 13900K with a $500 Z790 Aorus Master flagship motherboard, and I cannot get 8000 to run stable on my Intel CPU. So I just have a bad memory controller or something because I just can't do it. And what's ironic is the RAM kit that I'm using only has an XMP profile. There's no Expo profile. So I'm literally loading the Intel XMP profile into my AMD motherboard and it works fine. Meanwhile, it doesn't actually work on my Intel CPU, which is quite ironic. So, and the reason why it's easy to do 8000 is because the U clock actually runs at a lower speed when you set it equal to F clock versus if you try to run it at Gear 1 mode with DDR6000. Think about that. Think about this for a second. If I have DDR5, so if DDR5 equals 6000 mega transfers, then what does that mean? That means M clock equals 3 gigahertz. That means, or it's 3000 megahertz. And that means U clock in Gear 1, assuming Gear 1 mode, equals 3000 megahertz. But F clock equals 2000 megahertz. So what does this mean? This means that my memory controller with 6000 DDR5, my memory controller is running at 3 gigahertz. Now, meanwhile, if DDR5 equals 8000 megatransfers, that means M clock equals 4000 megahertz. Remember, it's half of the number, the advertised number. So that's where the name double data rate. It takes the clock of the RAM, which in this case is 4 gigahertz, it doubles up, and that's how you get your 8000 advertised number. U clock equals what? Now we're in Gear 2 mode because the U clock's upper limit is 3 gigahertz. So now we're running at 2 gigahertz. And F clock is still 2 gigahertz. So what does this show? This shows that at 8000 DDR5, the memory controller is actually running 1000 megahertz slower than when it was at 6000. This is the reason why it is actually not that hard to run a Zen 4 and now Zen 5 at 8000 DDR5. This is why it works very consistently with the newer BIOSes, and it's very easy to do. It's not a challenge to run 8000 DDR5 on an AMD system. Meanwhile, if you're trying to do this on Intel, it's very hard to do. It's very hard to get 8000 stable on an Intel platform. Go watch any of BuildZoid's videos if you don't believe me. But this is the reason why it's actually pretty easy, because the memory controller is actually not stressed out because all the pressure is shifted toward the RAM. The RAM is now running at a whooping 4 gigahertz. The RAM's going at 4 gigahertz, whereas when it was running at 6000, the RAM was only running at 3 gigahertz. So do you guys see why? What makes 8000 challenging on AMD? Because it's totally not the CPU. The CPU is just sitting there at 2 gigahertz like, yeah, life is good. I'm bored at work. There's nothing to do. Everything goes by so fast. That's basically how the memory controller feels when the RAM is clocked at 8000 MTS. Meanwhile, the memory, the DDR5 RAM itself at 8000 is like all stressing out, going crazy, doing everything so fast, doing backflips in the office. Because it's running at, it's like on Monster or something. It's clocked at 4 gigahertz. So the challenge for 8000 is finding RAM that can actually do 8000. Finding RAM that can actually run at 4 gigahertz. That is the challenge. The CPU can do it all day. It doesn't care because the CPU's like, oh, I'm just sitting here at 2 gigahertz. This is easy mode. So let that sink in. Meaning, for those of you that are running 6000 megatransfers, this is more challenging for the CPU than 8000. 8000 is less intense for the CPU, more intense for the memory. Whereas here, the roles flip. At this config, it is more intense for the CPU and less intense for the memory. Mostly the motherboard. Just the RAM for the most part, and the motherboard to some extent. What are we talking about? The memory controller on the 7800X3D. No, your 7800X3D can do 8000, man. 7800X3D can do 8000 easily. You know why? The memory controller is only running at 2 gigahertz. It's a whole gigahertz slower than 6000. So keep that in mind. When you think about 8000, realize that at 8000, the CPU is less stressed than when it's running at 6000. Everything that we've just talked about is for Zen 4. For Zen 4. Now I feel like we're programming. This is like programming code, so this is like we're literally writing a program. That's basically what this is. We're literally writing a program, guys. This is weird. We literally wrote a program. If DDR5 equals 6000 MTS, M clock equals 6000 or equals 3000, U clock equals 3000, F clock equals 2000. Else, if DDR5 equals 8000, M clock equals 4000, U clock equals 2000, and F clock equals 2000. So take your pick. At the end of the day, you choose between, do you want M clock and U clock to be the same, or do you want U clock and F clock to be the same? That is the choice. If you have a 7800X3D or any 7000 series Ryzen CPU, this is what you need to remember. Now for Zen 5, the numbers change a little bit, but for the most part, they're very similar. Now, currently, I don't know what the upper bound on the F clock is, so I don't know what my else if statement is. But I think, from what people were talking about in the chat earlier, the gear 1 ratio, so for DDR5, for M clock equal U clock, I think the new upper bound is 6400 megatransfers. Is it too early to make recommendations for RAM purchases for max performance? Well, a lot of people are saying that for Zen 5, the maximum Gear 1 ratio would be 6400. I have not validated this, so I can't say 100% that that's true, but people in the chat were saying this earlier for the Zen 5 CPUs. And we don't know what this is because we don't know if this statement is true. See, that's the reason. My major question currently, I'm going to put this one in red. This is the major question. This is what I need an answer to. Like, this is the biggest question mark. This is the biggest question mark. I'm going to put the Spanish questions. We're going to put this in Espanol. We're going to put the upside down question and the right side up question. Can the 9700X run F clock at 2.4 gigahertz? Because this is a magical thing. If this is true, this is magic, guys, if that's true. I don't know if that's true because as far as I know, Tech Power Up said 2200 was kind of like what the recommended speed was. Der Bauer tested his at 2100. So I don't know. Yeah, Spanish, we've got upside down. There's upside down question marks and exclamation marks in Spanish. We're asking the question in Spanish, even though this is not in Spanish. So we're doing broken English. Is there RAM that I could buy now that I could tune down for most of the 1-to-1 ratio to avoid the compression latency? Guys, keep in mind that when you're running the RAM at 8000, you're eliminating that latency penalty. Just FYI. All the people talking about the latency, they don't realize that when you set uclock equal fclock, you literally reduce like 4 nanosecond latency right there. I don't think you can overclock from 64 to 8000. I don't think the kit can do that. So, I think there's a lack of understanding on this thing. You do realize when you run 8000, the latency penalty that you're talking about, like what Met was saying earlier, I don't think Met is aware that when you run at 8000, you eliminate that latency penalty. So okay, let me clarify that. If I run 6000 Gear 1, that has a certain latency. If I run 7200 Gear 2, this has lower latency than this. That is understood. What I am saying is that when you run the RAM at 8000, specifically 8000, because now uclock equals fclock, now you have magically synchronized the memory controller with the fabric. The latency goes down. Back to the levels of 6000. So any latency penalty that you get from Gear 2 is completely or basically gone when you run at 8000. This is why I keep saying that 8000 is the magic number. This is the reason why I say, for those of you that are building Zen 4 based builds, these are the only numbers that matter. Gear 1 6000 or Gear 2 8000. That's it. That's it. Nothing else matters. Don't buy a 7200 memory kit. Don't buy a 6600 memory kit. Or a 7400 or a 7600. No, you either buy 6000 or you buy 8000. Because at those two speeds, the stars align on the silicon and your latency is minimized. Now, if you have a golden sample and you can magically run Gear 1 6400 or Gear 1 6200, then yeah, that'll be a little bit better than these two. But for 99% of the people out there that want to buy something, do a one-button XMP enable press, set it and forget it, these are the only options that matter for most people. I already have a video showing 6000 versus 8000 on the channel. 8000 wins. Just FYI. Spoiler alert, 8000 beats 6000 by a small amount. But it's such a small amount. That's why most people say it's not worth it, because you're paying more for memory. But if you want the absolute maximum performance, 8000 is going to outperform 6000. So, I mean, it's higher frequency, guys. It's higher memory bandwidth on your DRAM. Obviously, the theoretical bandwidth is going to be higher on 8000 versus 6000. But is it worth it most of the time? Probably not for most people. But these are the two numbers that matter. So not 7200, not 6800, not 74, 76. That whole section of like 7000 megahertz, that stuff is irrelevant for the Ryzen CPUs. So, okay. So that is it. For Zen 4, 6000 Gear 1 or 8000 Gear 2, those are the only numbers that matter. So, and again, for the people that keep saying 6400, Met keeps saying 6400. Why are you saying 6400? Not every Zen 4 CPU can do 6400 Gear 1. So, that's irrelevant. That's like the 2% of people that got golden samples that could do 6400. So, get this. I have 3 Zen 4 CPUs. I have a 7700X, a 7950X, and a 7950X 3D. Well, actually, no, I have 4. I have a 7800X 3D. I have 4 Zen 4 CPUs. None of them can do 6400 Gear 1 stable. So that's the reason why I'm not going to recommend 6400 megahertz Gear 1. 6400 megahertz Gear 2 will work. But, you know, now you have more latency. So no, I don't recommend 6400 Gear 1 because it is not guaranteed to work unless you're buying a 9700X. Now, I have not verified this, so I'm not going to recommend that yet, but a lot of people are saying that the maximum Gear 1 for Zen 5 is 6400. So if 6400 is truly the maximum for Zen 5, that is good news because that's going to outperform the Zen 4. Because, guys, I'm not going to make a video and show like 6400 Gear 1 on a 7950X because I understand that, first of all, my CPU can't do that stable. Second of all, I'm not going to make something that only like 3% of people with golden samples can follow and it actually works. I'm not going to put a video out there that people try to copy paste the settings and it doesn't work. You know, that's not good. We're not going to do that. So again, to conclude the Zen 4 discussion, these are the only numbers that actually matter at the end of the day for Zen 4. Okay. Yeah, so we have gone like way over on the RAM discussion. But anyway, so this is probably the most in-depth that we're going to go on the subject of this because there's a lot. We can go way more deep, but that's going to be like another 3 hours. So someone's saying it's 5 minutes until 1. So that's probably going to be where we end this discussion. I have to verify this claim of Gear 1 64 on a Zen 5 CPU. So I will test this on the 9700X because obviously, I mean, we've been streaming the whole time at 8000 and it works on Zen 5, but that's because it already worked on Zen 4. Yeah, the whole argument about like 6000 being better or 6400 first of all is irrelevant because like not everybody can do that in Gear 1. Second of all, 6000 is going to be worse than 8000 from a productivity standpoint. So and then that translates into a lot of like games that are like memory bound. 8000 is going to outperform 6000 hands down. Like there's no denying that. So Scatterbencher ran all his overclock methods using 6400 on the Zen 5. Okay, yeah, I watched his video on his overclocking guide for the 9700X. I need to watch it again and pay more attention to it. He has some very good content regarding like what changed with Curve Shaper. That is something that I will definitely explore later on. But yeah, the Gear 1 6400 is good because that does mean that the newer binned IO dies are more likely to do 6400 consistently. But the real question is... Oh, now we're removing the Spanish question marks. What is the max F-clock? Like, this is the main question that I need an answer to. What is... Yeah, what is the max F-clock on Zen 5? Like, this is what I really, really want to know. Like, is 2400 megahertz real? Is this real? Is this real, or is this a myth? Or is this a meme? Phoronix had like one review showing an 8700G running at 2400 on the F-clock. However, keep in mind, 8700G is a monolithic die, but in theory, the IO die chiplet shouldn't be that different from the way the fabric is designed on the monolithic. So, who knows? I don't know. But this is going to change what our Max Gear 2 is. Because Max Gear 2 is dependent on how fast your fabric is running. And the higher your fabric runs, you get a much better performance uplift if you can clock your fabric pretty high. So I personally think that potentially, if this is true, Zen 5 could be significantly better than Zen 4. Because Zen 4 was limited by F-clock. In fact, the single CCD, like a 7700X, a 7800X 3D, all those single CCD Zen 4 CPUs, they were quite bandwidth limited due to the fabric, due to the F-clock. The dual CCDs actually were better off. Because you basically have like double the fabric bandwidth versus a single CCD. However, of course there's like the whole like inter CCD latency thing, but you know, that's not really a problem for most things, for most use cases for the CPU. So yeah, I think this pretty much sums it up, guys. So the only remaining question for me is like, what's the maximum F-clock on the Zen 5 CPUs? And then the other thing I need to verify is basically, can 6400 Gear 1 work 100% stable on Zen 5? So yeah, I'll have to test that next. Anyway, guys, that's going to be it for this stream. Thanks for tuning in. I think this was a pretty good technical discussion compared to yesterday, where yesterday was basically Forspoken and Dragon's Dogma and Final Fantasy. Appreciate all the engagement in the chat here. I mean, I think we had a pretty good discussion this time. So stay tuned for the upcoming Zen 5 content. If you guys are curious on the 4 sticks of RAM thing, I will be testing 4 sticks of RAM on Zen 5. But if you want to see how 4 sticks works on an AMD system, go check out those videos on the channel that I referenced earlier in the stream. Because I know there's a lot of people out there that want to run 4 sticks of memory. And yeah, there's already a ton of content on the channel dedicated to 4 sticks of DDR5. But there's going to be more, but it's all going to be from the lens of Zen 5, aka Ryzen 9000. We're not going to be doing any 7000 series videos for DDR5 anymore, because there's already like half a dozen of them on the channel already. So anyway, guys, I'll see you guys on the next episode of Tech Thursdays. If you're new to the channel, get subscribed. Tune in every Thursdays. I don't always do these weekend live streams, so these are kind of optional, that just kind of pop up randomly depending on my availability. But the Thursday streams are every week. So around the same time, a little bit earlier than now, because it typically starts earlier. It's like typically 4 hours prior to this, I would go live every Thursday. So just keep that in mind. If you want to tune in on the Thursday live show, check that out. If you want to ask questions like this, we can do the same sort of discussion on the Thursday stream. So those are typically more open-ended or more formalized questions, I should say, or more formalized discussions, whereas this is just kind of like whatever, and it's just paint time. Anyway, guys, have a good night. I will catch you guys on Thursday. Until then, take care, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.